Welcome to the Money Tales podcast. I'm Cammie Doder.
And I'm Sandy Breaker.
From watching the Voting Rights Act debated on TV as a 5-year-old in the segregated South to becoming the first Black girl to integrate her school, Thomasina Williams' life has been shaped by powerful lessons about courage, opportunity, and money. In this episode, Thomasina shares how financial choices can be deeply connected to love, sacrifice, and legacy.
Here are 3 key money topics Thomasina hits on in this conversation. First, sometimes love means sacrificing financial security for someone else's dream. Second, the greatest work is the kind you do even if no one paid you. And third, true wealth is not just about money. It includes education, relationships, and community. Now it's our pleasure to bring you Thomasina Williams' Money Tales. We are joined today with special guest Thomasina Williams. Welcome to the show, Thomasina.
Thank you. Thank you, ladies, for having me.
We are delighted that you're here. And before we get to your money tales, I wanted to share a conversation that I had with a good friend recently. We were talking about taking risks, taking financial risks. And the conversation wasn't about taking risk in portfolios or making some sort of investment. It was around career and life risks. So this friend is someone that I've known for many decades. And when we were both in our 20s, we took a lot of risks. And she was sort of reciting hers out loud. We both quitted our jobs and moved to New York City. She got a new job in a industry that she wasn't used to. She then left that job. Before that, she had gone traveling to a different country. She went traveling to another country. She went to graduate school. She dropped everything, moved to another country. For the last 25 years or so, she's been hard at work on her career. And over that time, she has made some pivots. But she's at a point right now where she'd like to make some other major pivots in her life. And she was lamenting that she didn't feel like she could take the same sort of risks that she did many years ago today.
Why?
Well, I challenged her on that. And she said, because I have more financially at stake. I have a mortgage. I have a family. I have financial obligations. And I said, yes, that's true. But you also have a lot more skill. You have a lot more professional experience. There's so much that you can offer. Making a jump today to something different, you're actually better skilled and ready for that than you were when you were making these changes as a younger person. And that sort of caught her off guard. I don't know if I convinced her to take the risk.
Well, I really appreciate you reminding us that risk has many angles to it. And also opportunities on the other side of that spectrum has that same. So the opportunity when you're young and hungry and you think you can do anything.
You have no financial responsibilities except feeding yourself.
Right. But you don't have that experience. And now you're in another situation as you get older. It's just a great reminder that there are so many lenses and how important having that conversation with a trusted friend can be to maybe challenge some preconceived ideas.
That's right. And we did talk about the fact that taking a risk doesn't mean that you have to quit your job and then start a search. You can actually plan it out and you can create a glide path to getting where you want to go, making sure that you have enough money available to cover expenses if you think it's going to be a little while before you land that next job. In her case, I think she would like to take a bit of a break and do some deep thinking before she moves on to the next career step.
Good for her.
I hope she'll do it.
I hope she'll do it too.
I hope she will too. I think it's important to take calculated risk.
Yes.
And I think people define risk differently. I'm in my 3rd career. When I decided to leave the first one, practicing law, people thought I was crazy. I didn't think so. Didn't seem risky to me. I made the leap. And I think it's important, there's this saying that we regret most the things that we did not do than the things that we did do. Thinking about what would have been. Try it and see.
Absolutely. We talked to Daniel Pink, who wrote his recent book on regrets, and he talked about regrets are also a sign of what's really important to you. So using feelings of regret to help you in your decisions. But I love that you brought up different perspectives on risk.
Yes, especially defining your own risk. Don't let other people define it for you.
Well said.
And also, if she has children, modeling for her kids that it's okay to take a risk.
Yes.
I mean, that's where the growing edge is, right? You've got to do
wow.
something a little bit different to get something a little bit different.
See, she owes it to her family to take this risk. I can't wait.
Great.
I know she'll listen to this episode. So thanks for helping me encourage her along.
This is great. Yeah, you're already showing this is going to be a very deep conversation. To kick things off, would you tell us a little bit about yourself and share a couple pivotal moments that have really impacted your journey?
Yeah, so I am a product of the 60s. I grew up in the segregated South at a time when racial segregation was legal, when I was the first Black girl to integrate my elementary school, to graduate from my private high school. And so that definitely informs a lot of who I am and how I think. I remember as a 5-year-old watching the evening news. And my little nephew doesn't believe this, but back in those days, it was black and white, and we only had 3 channels.
Shocking. How did we live?
Yeah, I mean, the entire community was just raptured by the news because they were debating the Voting Rights Act, passage of that. This is, it was passed in 65, so I think it was probably 64. And I don't know, something about that just really captured my attention. And it seemed like everybody who was on the evening news who was talking about this, who had a vote, was white, was a male, and was a lawyer. At least to my 5-year-old mind, they all seemed like lawyers. And so I decided at 5 that I wanted to be a lawyer so that I could be in those rooms making decisions that impact people's lives.
Thomasina, did you even know what a lawyer was when you were 5 years old?
I did. Think back to 1964.
Yes.
In the racially segregated South, the entire community was caught up and raptured. And it's because this is a big deal. Black folks had literally died, bled blood to get the right to vote in this country. So everybody was focused on it. My father was a union guy. My father was a mailman. And just a very much an activist. My grandmother, I remember when the Voting Rights Act finally passed, she would take me to vote with her, and she had to be the first person to vote. Not one of the first, but we would literally go there half an hour early, and everybody knew my grandmother, Miss Gussie. She was going to be the first person to cast a ballot because she knew the time when that was not an option and that people had literally died for that. So I was very conscious, and I'm an oldest, right? So I'm hanging out with the adults anyway, just very conscious of how important that was for our community and for our country, and what a pivotal moment it was, not just for me as a child, for my family, for my community, and just for our country in general.
Thank you for bringing that to life for us.
Yeah, it's hard to think about these days, 2025, that there was a time when that was a big deal.
Yeah, we take a lot of things for granted.
We take a lot for granted, which is frankly why we're seeing rollbacks now, but that's a different conversation. That's a different podcast.
For sure.
Yeah, I would say that's my definitely first pivotal moment. The next one, particularly as it relates to this conversation around money, was how I ended up attending the college that I attended. I did really well in school and had gotten myself a full scholarship to Vanderbilt. Everything, tuition, books, room, board, the whole 9 yards. And I was super excited about that because my parents had literally mortgaged their house to send me and my 3 brothers to private school. There wasn't anything else to mortgage at that point. And so part of my goal had been to figure out how can I go to college and it not be a financial drain on my parents. Got this sweetheart deal. I'm super excited. I come home one day and I overhear my mother on the phone talking to one of her girlfriends, and she started to cry. And she was so upset that I was not going to go to Mount Holyoke College, which is where she thought I should go, because some of her school teacher, my mom was a school teacher, her school teacher friends just thought that was like the best school in the world. Well, Vanderbilt's like not nothing to play
It's a
with,
great
right?
school. Yeah.
It's a great school. And I had no idea. My mom was literally in tears saying that, because she didn't have anything else to mortgage, she didn't have the money, that she thought that I was going to miss out on all these great opportunities. And, I think about money as currency, but there are all kinds of currency. And in my community, when I was growing up, and remember again, this is the 60s we're talking about, education was a form of currency. And she didn't have any more of that. And she was really upset and felt like somehow she had failed me because she had only gotten me through high school. I was shocked. I didn't know that it meant that much to her. So we had this conversation and she was like, oh, well, you should call them and tell them that you changed your mind. I was like, you can't do that. You can't just say I changed my mind. And particularly, again, this was 1975. There weren't a whole lot of Black folks getting into these schools in the first place. So to get in and then have the nerve to say, oh, no, I'm not coming to you all. I want to go to this other place. Well, the only reason I wasn't going to go is because they wouldn't give me any scholarship. And this is another money issue, right? It really was an opportunity to see how the middle class gets squeezed. My father is a mailman. My mom is a school teacher. It's not like they're rolling in dough here, folks. Yet I could not get any scholarship from Mount Holyoke. The reason my mom we got into this because one of my algebra teacher actually was a graduate of Mount Holyoke, and she was pushing that. I don't know, I guess my mom and her and my mom's girlfriends. And I was like, look, I'm focused on the dollars. To me, it didn't matter where I went to school. The question was, what was I going to do with that degree once I got out?
When you talk to your mom about this and, they've invested, there's nothing left to mortgage, they've invested in you and your brother's education. When you talked about the college choices and one having a full ride and the other, you're not getting any access to any funding, what was that conversation like between you and your mom?
Simply that Vanderbilt is a fantastic school. And Vanderbilt had a law school. Because remember, from 5 years old, I'm going to law school. I'm going to be a lawyer.
Right.
So my plan was to go to Vanderbilt, do well there on a full ride scholarship, and then get a full ride scholarship to law school. So I would come out of school debt free.
You had it all figured out.
I had it all figured out. It made perfect sense to me. But this is also, I think, an example of how emotion comes into play when you're talking about family, when you're talking about money. My mom should have been excited that I got a full ride scholarship to Vanderbilt. She doesn't have to worry about it. Just get me there to campus and everything's taken care of. It was interesting. It was like a role reversal, I'm the mom talking to the daughter. And she was like, well, just write him and tell him you changed your mind. I was like, it doesn't work like that. And she was so insistent. And I was like, okay, fine. You write the letter and I'll sign it. She's like, okay. She was all excited. I was like, I'm just telling you, I don't think this is going to work. So all summer, I'm like, I'm going to Vanderbilt. I'm going to Vanderbilt. I'm going to Vanderbilt. One day I come home. This is in the days when college started after Labor Day. So this is like maybe the Thursday before Labor Day. I'm going to Vanderbilt. There's no question in my mind. I come home. My mom's all excited. She's waving this letter from Mount Holyoke that she's been waiting all summer for. And I've been waiting for you to get home to open this letter. And I was like, I'm telling you, it's just, it doesn't happen. And look, school starts in a couple of days, literally. So I was like, okay, fine. You're all excited. You open the letter because I'm going to Vanderbilt. So she opens the letter and she reads it and she starts screaming. I told you so. I told you so. And I was like, wait a second. Give me that. Because I'm thinking she has read what she wants to see, not what is on the piece of paper. And for reasons I can't tell you, they said, okay, fine, she can come. And I'm like, oh my God, that wasn't part of the plan.
That's like a last minute, like huge turn.
A huge turn, and they still didn't give me any scholarship. So
Oh.
there's no money. There's no money. And I'm like, oh my gosh, this man who got me this sweetheart, I got to call this guy at Vanderbilt and tell him I made a bet basically and I lost. And I mean, I couldn't have my mom be all excited and then not go, because who would have thought they would do that? That they would say yes at the last minute. So I have to call this man and explain to him, it's because of my mother. I mean, the things we do for our moms, right? People talk about the things moms do for the kids. The kids do some things for the moms. So I felt so bad I had to call this guy, and there's no money still. So fortunately, because my parents were both in unions, we go to the teachers' credit union. I borrow the maximum amount I can borrow. We go to the letter carriers, the postal credit union. I borrow the maximum amount I can borrow. And then I had to get a job, and I worked through school. All because it was that important to my mother. Honestly, I didn't really care where I went to school. Because again, to me, the issue is, what do you do with the degree once you get it? But it meant that much to my mother. So I ended up coming out of school with a bunch of debt, having to work during school for the love of my mother.
You tell this story with so much distance between what was happening then and everything else that's happened in your life to date. How are you feeling when you graduated school with that debt?
It just came with the territory. I mean, candidly, lots of people graduated with debt. I was trying not to be one of them. I mean, it was a fact of life.
But you didn't have animosity toward your mother?
Oh, absolutely not. Because in her mind, again, this is the mid-70s. There weren't opportunities like this as readily as there are today. And in her mind, she genuinely felt bad. She was devastated and on the phone crying with her friend that she couldn't afford to send me to some other expensive school. It meant that much to her. And if it meant that much to her, then I was going to do what I could do, at least give it a shot.
I love that you're not angry or bitter or frustrated by this. This is just kind of your facts. And as a result of working through school, where you were stretched thin, did that impact anything, any of your thinking going forward when you decided to go into law school? Did it impact you in any way?
No, the grudge thing, upset with my mom. No, my mom was doing what she thought was best. And again, it wasn't like I was in this unique circumstance. If anything, candidly, it was unique to have gotten a full ride. So there are lots of people, and it's just a part of life. And, my mother has this saying about building character. And I was like, I think my character's pretty good. Thank you very much.
Your character bucket is full. Thank you very much.
Exactly.
We can tell.
So it's just, it's a part of life. And I thought I was going to go left. Well, we're going right. And we'll see where that takes us. And that obviously changed lots in terms of trajectory, in terms of where I went to law school. I ended up being friends with a bunch of people. We were all going to go to law school and tough it out together. They were from Detroit. And University of Michigan was like one of the top 3 law schools in the country. I was like, okay, I could think I can get in there. Turns out we were all supposed to go tough it out together because they were from Michigan. I was the only person who ended up going to Michigan Law School. But no regrets there either. You just roll with the punches.
Oh my gosh, Thomasina. So you become a lawyer.
Became a lawyer.
What's your relationship with money at that point in your life? Because presumably you have maybe more debt on the books?
A heck of a lot more debt, yes. I now have undergrad debt, and then I have law school debt on top of the undergrad debt. So I was interested in voting rights, as I said, from like 5 years old. I didn't know that as a civil rights lawyer, you can't pay your student loans and also have a life and eat up being a civil rights lawyer. So my trajectory was I went to a big law firm. I did a federal appellate clerkship, which is a lot of fun. And then I went to a big law firm because I needed to do that to pay off my student loan debt. To me, that was a goal. Where can I go that I can make money to pay this debt off quickly. Because again, my plan was never to have this debt in the first place.
Get it out of my life. I'm done. I want it away.
Yeah. So I was able to do that. It worked out.
Thomasina, it sounds like debt doesn't create fear in you. It is what it is. What are the emotions around debt to you?
Yeah, I mean, it's a fact of life.
Just a fact of life.
There's, quote, good debt, depends on what it's for. I don't have a bunch of credit card debt. I think people who rack up credit card debt and are paying all that, interest every month is crazy. But debt to get an education, and again, we didn't have money, but if you had an education, the assumption was that you could better yourself, your family, and your community as well.
It's a lot of pressure.
It's so interesting to have people have that kind of reaction. I never thought of it as pressure. To me, it was more like honor, like stewardship, like this is my part. There are a whole lot of people who literally gave their lives for me to get to where I got to. I remember coming home and, the little ladies at church, they would take up like a collection. They wanted me to have some spending money, that kind of thing. So like the whole community.
You were doing it for the community.
I was doing it for myself. I was doing it for my family and my community. I don't feel as though I sacrificed anything personally. It was just part of an opportunity, frankly, that I had been gifted. A lot of people didn't get those opportunities. People don't get those opportunities even today. And so I was grateful, and I was also determined that I wasn't going to let my mom or the little old ladies at church or my grandmother, my dad, or anybody else down.
That's beautiful. And you talked about money. You think of money as currency, but that there's other forms of currency, and you've talked about education being one. What are other important forms of currency to you?
I think one of the most important forms of currency, particularly in the work we do with families, is relationships. To me, I always say that your most precious asset is who you are, not what you own.
Wow.
We've gotten this thing twisted, I believe. And so again, when you grow up, at least in my experience, in a place, my grandparents actually were the wealthiest people in my community. The community is actually named after my grandparents now, after they died. But money wasn't the driving force. Money has never been the driving force for me. It was so funny. Just the other day, I was in the car with someone. I was in the car talking to someone on the phone, and my mom was in the car. And I can't remember what the conversation she overheard, but when I hung up, she says, "That's right. You've never been driven by money. If you were driven by money, you would still be a lawyer." And I just thought it was so funny the way she said it, like she was backing me up on that. She was all emphatic about it. So I just got a chuckle out of that. It's different kinds of currency, relationships. I think family connection is why I choose to do the part of the work that I do. So that at the same time, people are stewarding this financial capital, all these financial assets. You also want to make sure you have the family connection. Because at the end of the day, nobody wants to have a pile of money and the family, they have nobody to spend it with, nobody to enjoy it with.
Thomasina, can you tell us a little bit about what you do and how you got there after your legal career?
Yeah, so actually I'm in my third career. I've made one stop in between law and what I do now. They say if you ever have an opportunity to get paid doing something that you would do for free, try it. And I did a lot of pro bono voting rights and civil rights work in Miami because that was my passion. That's why I went to law school. But people didn't realize I didn't get paid to do that. I represented corporations, and that was kind of the civil rights work was like my hobby, my passion. So an opportunity presented itself for me to go to the Ford Foundation. After the Bush v. Gore litigation in Florida, they started a new portfolio focused on understanding voting rights and getting people to understand civic engagement. I found out about it, was discouraged actually from applying, but hey, tell me no, that's really not going to do very much. So I did 6 years at the Ford Foundation first. And then I was trying to figure out, what do I want to do next? I did not want to go back to law, sort of been there, done that. And I thought it might have something to do with working with family foundations. because the portfolio that I had was the largest in the country at that time in that particular arena. And lots of family foundations would be calling me saying, well, what do you think about this? What's the Ford Foundation doing about this? So I'd gotten to meet a few people, and I was interested in policy change. People say that they care about education and they want to give someone a $5,000 scholarship. I mean, people need scholarship money. I'm not mad at scholarships. That's not going to change the trajectory for anyone. And these kids who you want to give the scholarship to are behind the 8 ball before they even get there. People don't understand, for example, how public education is funded in our country. It's funded based on property taxes. So no matter what community you live in, the poor communities are always going to have crappy schools. Those kids are always going to be behind the 8 ball. So anyway, I thought maybe there'll be some family foundations interested in this work. And I started exploring family philanthropy. And then I came across John A. Warnick, the founder of the Purposeful Planning Institute, attended one of the conferences, found out about the shirt sleeves to shirt sleeves in 3 generations proverb. That was another pivotal moment for me. It's like, oh my God, this is a thing? It's not just my family that couldn't keep it together, because my grandparents were citrus growers, my maternal grandparents, and owned all these citrus groves and all this land. And, you know, they gave a park to the city, so the Black kids had a place to play in those days. They gave all of their 8 kids a homestead so they could get started. So I grew up in a community extended family because it was free. My grandparents had given it to everybody. I just thought, you know, I don't know. I had all these confusing signals from family growing up and trying to understand what was going on and what happened with the money. But the bottom line is that all that was lost in my mom's generation. And so when I heard about shirt sleeve to shirt sleeve, I was like, oh my God, this is a thing. It wasn't just my family. And moreover, there's this emerging multidisciplinary field of professionals who are trying to figure out how to avoid that or course correct if it's already happened. And so I went all in on doing this work because it was a personal passion for me and my family, but also just a professional mission as well.
It's so great, Thomasina. It seems like the through line of your life has been to be a systems changer. And it sounds like that's what you're working on right now with the families that you serve, changing systems to make them work more effectively together.
Well, I would say I start with trying to help other people see the system, first of all. I think that's a big challenge in our society. We tend to be very linear, cause and effect. Whatever I can see above the waterline, that must be it. And we don't tend to go much deeper or to look at what are the connections and the interdependencies. We tend to be fairly insular. And I mean, I'm a realist. I can't change any system by myself unless it's my own family for the most part. So the bottom line is it takes other people who can see something perhaps they didn't see before we started working together.
Thomasina, with this shirt sleeves to shirt sleeves revelation and, you know, something we've heard before, what's your experience that's not an obvious cause for this to be the case, to even be something that happens generations over generations?
The challenge is that we've gotten things backwards. You know, we've forgotten that the original Old English meaning of the term wealth was well-being. It was about the quality of who we are. Again, that's why I always go back to that. Who we are, it wasn't about the quantity of the things that we owned or the possessions that we had. And I think our society has frankly just lost sight of that. You know, it's interesting, as I was thinking about preparing for this conversation, this Chinese proverb came to mind, which there are different variations on it, but it essentially says, if you want to have prosperity for a year, you grow grain. If you want prosperity for a decade, grow some trees. But if you want prosperity for centuries, you grow people.
That's beautiful.
Very powerful.
We've gotten it backwards. And so I firmly believe that in order to sustain the wealth, I mean, that's certainly what happened in the case of my family. My grandparents were very religious. They thought if they just raised God-fearing kids, everything was going to be great. I remember my first year of law school trying to convince my grandfather just to do a will. I didn't know what a trust was at that point. And he was like, no, don't you worry about a thing, baby. You just focus on your studies. Your uncle so-and-so, oldest male, is going to take care of everything. And I was like, yeah, granddaddy, he's going to take care of it all right. I just don't think it's going to be in the way that you and grandma intended. And sure enough.
You tried.
And you were really in tune with it.
I was a child and I could see it. I mean, it was pretty obvious if you were. But see, that's the thing, though. It's so interesting, the things that we'll do in front of our parents. So much goes on, I find, that parents at some deep, deep level maybe have some sense that something's not quite the way they think it is. But I mean, you guys, I'm sure, see that once the senior generation is no longer around, all kinds of stuff that has just been simmering below the surface emerges, and it's not a pretty sight. I mean, my grandparents would be devastated if they could see what has happened. And the only thing that's left of all that land, income producing land my grandparents had, is just the 6 acres that was their homestead. And that now is just vacant land, overgrown. And there's probably, I don't know, 3 or 4 dozen people who have some tiny little interest in it, because my grandparents had 8 kids. They died without a will. Most of those 8 people have died without a will. And it's just a hot mess. So that's why I am passionate personally about what I call course correcting for my own family, as well as being a resource for other families.
Well, Thomasina, we're so glad you're out there doing that work. It is very important having these open conversations, getting these dynamics and these relationships and expectations and assumptions on the table for any family is so important, and it's not easy work. What's your next money conversation going to be, and who's it going to be with?
My next money conversation actually will be with my mom and brother. So we have a small real estate development company. As I said, the neighborhood where I grew up now is named after my grandparents. The city just did that on their own. No, instigation from our family. And we still own lots of land there. So we have been wanting to develop it, and started out on this project pre-COVID. Needless to say, COVID upset everything to the point that it literally cost 2.5 times what it would cost pre-COVID to build the same house today. Because we had such explosive growth in Central Florida. I'm in the Orlando area. And so the conversation is around selling, whether we should sell some of the land, and if we do, how much and to whom. And there is, shall we say, a few differences of opinion amongst the clan about what to do with that.
Oh my goodness, we got to have you back on to find out how that conversation went. Conversations. This isn't a one and done.
Exactly. Series of conversations.
Yes. Which we have to remember, that's how most money conversations are. They're not one and done. Oh, wow. Thomasina, well, this has been incredible. Would you share, where's the best place for our listeners to find you digitally?
Go to my website, developfamilyleaders.com, and they can send me an email through that. They can sign up for our newsletter. They can also sign up for an emerging community for women that I'm in the process of developing.
Excellent. Your work is incredible, and your story was inspirational. Thank you.
Thank you, ladies, for having me.
Thanks for listening to the Money Tales podcast. If you've enjoyed this episode, share it with someone you think would benefit from listening, and leave us a review on your favorite podcasting platform. Your ratings and reviews help more people find our podcast. If you're inspired to gain clarity and peace of mind about financial matters, don't hesitate to reach out to our team at Aspirient. Go to aspirient.com/start a dialogue. Or you can email Sandy and me at podcasts@aspirient.com. See you next time.